Praised be Jesus and Mary. Today, in the old Franciscan calendar, is the feast of the betrothal of Our Lady to Saint Joseph. Some other religious institutes and places that may be celebrated, and also today in Spain, it was the or at least in the old calendar, I'm not sure if it still is, the feast of Saint Ildefonsus, the great doctor of the Church who defended the virginity of Our Lady. But the betrothal of Our Lady to Saint Joseph is worthy of our attention. The marriage of these holy spouses is worthy of our attention because there's some confusion about it. Not too long ago, I heard someone say at A Day with Mary that Mary was an unwed mother, which is not exactly true. So obviously, this person understood that Mary was conceived, or that Mary conceived by the Holy Spirit. He didn't have any doubts about her virginity. He didn't mean that she was an unwed mother in the sense of having committed some sin. But he thought that she was not married when she conceived Jesus, which is not an uncommon mistake, but it is a mistake. This mistake comes from from misunderstanding what St. Luke writes about the Annunciation. He says that the angel Gabriel was sent by God, from God, to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph. So this is a virgin betrothed, and in our culture, in many cultures, someone who is betrothed is not yet married, but simply engaged. But things worked differently among the Jews of Jesus' time. For them, there were two important acts, two important steps. First, the betrothal, and then the solemnization of the marriage. And the betrothal was not merely a promise to marry, it was actually a marriage contract. It was made before witnesses, and from that point, the betrothed spouses were really married. So the problem here really has to do with translating the Jewish culture into the Greek language, which had a different idea of betrothal, where betrothed persons were not yet married. But in the ancient Jewish culture, betrothal was actually a marriage. Now, they didn't live together at that point. They waited until the marriage was solemnized, perhaps a year later. And at that point, then the bridegroom would go to the house of the bride's parents and get the bride and lead her in a procession to his home. And then they would have a wedding feast, like the wedding feast of Cana. So there are many parables that refer to this practice of solemnizing the marriage. That the parable of the 10 virgins, the 5 wise and 5 foolish, who are waiting for the bridegroom to come and the celebration to start. But here we're really more interested in the betrothal, because that's what's celebrated in today's feast. It's a genuine marriage, and so while they did not live together, they were married, and so if they had relations before that, they were marital relations. It was not fornication, and their offspring was considered legitimate. If the groom decided not to solemnize the marriage, he had to give the bride a bill of divorce so that she would be free to marry someone else. If the bride was unfaithful, then she would be considered guilty of adultery and would suffer the penalty for that. And so this helps us to understand better the situation of Our Lady and of Saint Joseph when Our Lady's pregnancy becomes obvious, but in order to hide in order to conceal God's secret, she doesn't feel that she can simply explain to Joseph what happened. And so, Mary was indeed married in this sense when the angel Gabriel came to ask her to be the mother of God. If we look at the Gospel of St. Matthew, it's a little clearer there. There we read, when Jesus Christ's mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, so once again talking about being betrothed, before they came together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. And her husband Joseph, being a just man and unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. We know that then the angel came to clarify things. But here, if we pay attention to the words, so she is betrothed, but Joseph is her husband already. So, you're a husband of someone that you're married to. And again, you can't divorce a woman unless you're actually married to her. That we don't speak of divorce if someone is simply breaking an engagement. So, no, they were indeed married. And why were they married? Well, that's actually an interesting question, because we know that from the Annunciation that the Blessed Virgin had no intention of having children. When the angel tells her that she's going to conceive and bear a son, she says, I do not know man. Then, which in the sense that a vegetarian says, I do not eat meat. Not speaking about the fact I'm not eating meat now, but meaning I have resolved not to eat meat, or I have resolved not to know man. I've resolved to live as a virgin. And traditionally it's said that this was even a vow that the Blessed Virgin made. So, if she was simply speaking in the present tense, her answer to the angel wouldn't really make any sense. Because she's already married. Soon the marriage would be solemnized, and then things would take their natural course. So conceiving a child would be no problem. But God had inspired her to consecrate her virginity to Him, and since she knew that God wanted her to be a virgin, she had to ask how it was that she was going to be a mother. And so she married. But then, if this is the case, if she intends to be a virgin, why marry? Well, because God had made it clear that that was also His will. It's not exactly, historically we're not certain exactly how God made this clear, but obviously He did, or otherwise she wouldn't have married, since she didn't expect to have children. But why should she marry? Oh, well, these are sort of God's reasons, perhaps, that Our Lady didn't understand all at first, because she didn't know that she would be the mother of the Messiah when she married. She didn't know that until the angel came to announce it to her. In her humility, she was perhaps hoping to be a handmaid, someone who would serve the mother of the Messiah, but didn't think of herself as being worthy of that. And so, one purpose is that so Saint Joseph could be the guardian of her virginity and could bear testimony to it. So if she's already married to someone, then no one else is going to ask her to marry. No one else is going to infringe upon that relationship that she has with Saint Joseph, and so he can help to keep her a virgin, and can also live as a virgin himself. Of course, they had to have agreed on that before the marriage. And Saint Joseph could also bear testimony to it, could also be the witness to her virginity, and also being the son, being married to Saint Joseph makes Our Lady's son legally the son of David, which is what the genealogy is all about in the Gospel of Saint Matthew, to show that Jesus is indeed the son of David. And this also, yet another reason is that so that Saint Joseph could protect and care for Jesus and Mary in the flight to Egypt. And if we think about this reason, we see that Saint Joseph probably was not an old man as he's sometimes painted. Because if he was an old man, he would not have been much help to Jesus and Mary in the flight to Egypt. It would rather have been Our Lady who would have had to take care of him. Now, the idea that he was old comes from an apocryphal book of the 2nd century, which is looking for a way to explain how it is that Jesus has these brothers in the Gospel. And so the explanation that it comes up with is to say, well, these could have been Joseph's children from a former marriage. And so then he would be old. And so there's this presentation of Joseph as old as a way to defend Our Lady's virginity, which you can see there that already in the 2nd century, people knew that Our Lady was a virgin and were trying to understand exactly how it was that the Gospel could talk about his brothers. But there's no need for that explanation, because if, unlike the author of that book, we understand better the Jewish context, we see that Jews called brothers also many relatives who we would call cousins. And even, one of the examples is, not a cousin, but a nephew. In the Old Testament, we find that Abraham's so-called brother, Lot, is in reality the son of Abraham's brother. So he's really a nephew, but he's also called a brother in the book of Genesis. And so, no, they didn't have a word for cousin, so they used the word brother in a much broader sense. So the fact that Mary was married has yet another purpose, one that is already pointed out by St. Ignatius the Martyr early in the 2nd century. And this was to deceive the devil, to make it at least unclear to him what was going on. And it was fitting that the deceiver should be deceived, and that the one who artfully entraps men should himself be entrapped by someone still more artful, by God. Since Mary and Joseph were married and they could have relations, no legal problem there. Joseph was a just man, and Mary was holy, and there would have been no sin apart from the fact that they had each promised to God their virginity. But no, that bit was not so clear to the devil. They could have conceived a son naturally, and so this would be what the devil would assume had happened. And so he would not know that the prophecy of Isaiah had been fulfilled, that a virgin had conceived and given birth, and would not know that this child was indeed the Messiah. At least he couldn't be sure. Not everything was lining up for him. Not all the prophecies seemed to be fulfilled as he expected. And so, God in this way also makes the remedy for sin correspond to the malady. He undoes the sin of our first parents by using the same things in a contrary manner. So, there in the original sin there was a virgin and there was a deceit, and in the way that we were saved, again there was a virgin and there was a deceit. In the sin, the virgin was Eve, who disobeyed, and the deceit was in the serpent's words that made her disobey. And here in our salvation, the virgin is Mary, who, instead of disobeying, obeys. And the one who is deceived, and the serpent is not the one who is deceiving, but he is the one who is deceived. So you see that God uses the same things that the devil used to conquer against him to conquer the devil. That he can use, he shows how wise he is by using the devil's own means to overwhelm him. And so also, he conquers him with a tree, but here it's not the place to explain everything about that. The devil is the father of lies, and so his tools are tools of deceit. God, who cannot lie, does not deceive by lying, but deceived the deceiver simply by hiding the extraordinary amid the ordinary. So this is Our Lady's espousal, Our Lady's marriage, a marriage that shows us that marriage is not necessarily about sex. That there can be a marriage which is fruitful in a supernatural way, which bears children not by a sexual union, but by a union in prayer with God, by this special grace. It is a unique marriage, and yet a marriage which is a model for other marriages, a marriage in which charity has the primacy, and in which charity unites the family. Here, this holy family is indeed a model for us, a model which also contains these many mysteries, which shows God's wise plan, a marriage worthy of our meditation, to understand the things that God has done. Praised be Jesus in marriage.
Nitida stella puella tu esplorum flos, o Mater pia Virgo Maria, ora pro nobis. Jesus salvator mundi amator, tu esplorum flos, o Jesu pia Filii Mariae, ea audimus. Mater